All right, good morning. We are live from North Main Street from Fly on the Wall Productions. You got the Aired Out podcast. I'm JD Green. Sunshine, and it is just beautiful out there today. We're looking at temperatures well into the 40s and maybe some mixed precipitation coming into the picture for the drive-in tomorrow morning. So it could be a slippery commute. Be careful on the roadways here for the next 24 to 48. Pleasure to have you with us. It is a great pleasure to bring onto the microphones right now the president and CEO, Sandy Rousse of Central Vermont Home Health and Hospice. You basically, Sandy. Good morning. First off,
Good morning.
You got started with the board back in the 90s, right?
Right.
And that was kind of the beginning for you.
Yes. In 1998, actually, my uncle Paul Beck, who owned Beck and Beck Granite, was on the board, and he approached me. I had just moved here not that long prior. And he said, how would you like to be involved on this board? You know, I'm on it, and we're looking for board members. I think you'd be great. I was, at the time, a CPA in public practice. Mm-hmm. And I said, sure. I actually had made some friends that worked there, and I always thought, what a great organization this would be to work for. So it was an honor to be asked.
And you were like the treasurer, weren't you?
Yeah, I was quickly put into the role of the treasurer of the board and chair of the finance committee.
Wow.
So it was great. I loved it, and I really got to understand community-based care.
So we're talking a very quick gear shift for you.
Yes.
Quickly.
Yes, very quickly.
So here we are. Wow. We have so much to talk about, and I'm so glad you're here this morning. Obviously, I want to ask you about aging in Vermont, and there's a lot of talk about that. But first off, town funding season for Central Vermont Home Health and Hospice. What exactly is that? What does that mean? I know that Central Vermont Home Health and Hospice serves 23?
Yes, we serve 23 communities. That includes all of Washington County and 3 communities in Orange County, Washington, Orange, and Williamstown.
Okay.
And ultimately, town funding actually has deep roots for Central Vermont Home Health and Hospice, as well as the whole VNA system of Vermont, the Visiting Nurse Association system of Vermont. And I did some work with regards to researching all of this because I was really curious how we evolved and all of that. And so when it first all started, the towns used to hire nurses to go into homes on their own and or with physicians to take care of individuals in their home when they got sick and all of that. And that's when doctors used to do home visits. And I think some of that has come back around. Doctors do some home visits, and it's a really great thing. And then what happened was that the towns seemed to be getting more and more involved in healthcare and taking care of people. And they approached the VNA system at the time and said, geez, this isn't really our thing. We don't really do healthcare. And if you would do it, we would be glad to support you through our budget process in providing some funding to help support the work that you do for the community. Because at that time, a lot of it was community health. It wasn't necessarily all medically based. Our roots actually started in the maternal and child health arena and worked with school systems and children in schools. And then it evolved. And then when Medicare came along in 1966, that model evolved more into not just all the community health work that we continue to do, and we still continue to do all our maternal and child work. There is a very skilled medical component of that. And we also do all these flu clinics. We did a significant amount through COVID. We do foot care clinics, which is a hit with our congregate housing, elderly population. And then we moved into this medical model of having, a large program of skilled nurses and rehab therapists of all, physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, licensed nurses, aides, social workers, etc. And then that's where it took off. And then I think around 1986 or a little bit prior, we ventured into hospice because Medicare then created a Medicare hospice benefit. We certainly have all our long-term care programs. So on top of that, we've always received town funding. And as we've expanded And all of that primarily were mandated by the state to provide care to those individuals that seek medically necessary care, regardless of their ability to pay.
And you're getting less and less federal help.
We are. So over the last, starting in 2008, Medicare is our primary payer, Medicare and Medicaid, and then we have a small amount of private insurance. So lots of times in the system, private insurance can make up for a lot of the dollars that Medicaid doesn't pay.
Sure.
And that's kind of how it works in the healthcare provider community outside of home health. For home health, because Medicare is our primary payer, starting in 2008, we are the only industry that has been decreased in rates every year since then.
Wow. Since 2008?
Since 2008. So 2008 through 2018 was 42% decrease in rates. This past year, actually, there was a 9% decrease over 2 years. So starting in 2023, we've been decreased by half of that, 4.5%, and then in 2024 it will be the same. Really counterintuitive to everything we're trying to do in healthcare, which is move care into the community. So it's really been...
Right, less hospital and less nursing home and more aging in place.
And, we are coming off from a pandemic that... How often do you go through that, right? Every 100 years?
Right.
Certainly our system is strained, not to say other industries aren't strained as well. Workforce is the biggest strain on all of us. It is a global national problem at this point. And for us to have dollars decrease that significantly when the rest of our business is Medicaid, which pays 50 cents on a dollar, and then private insurance, which is minimal, is really a huge hit for our organization and for the VNA system in Vermont.
You really are depending organically on Vermonters.
Right. Yes. And we've operated as an agency an operational loss situation where direct revenue less direct expense is a negative. We have relied on fundraising and contributions, investment income, and town funding are the things that offset that. And we've been able to do that very well. We're good stewards of the dollars that we receive, and our board is very conscious of that. And now it's come to a point where it is really a problem. And especially, trying to compete in the workforce market for nursing and therapy.
Sure.
We are competing with a hospital system,
right,
which is in a different place than us from a compensation perspective.
So absolute dumb question to ask you if you're hiring. I mean, that's, of course you are.
We certainly are hiring. We've had to use traveling clinicians because of our mandate with the state to serve pretty much anyone, regardless of their ability to pay. In 2021, we spent over $1 million on traveling clinicians. In 2022, that amount doubled.
That's just Central Vermont?
Correct.
Home
That's
health
just
hospital?
Central Vermont home health and hospice. So certainly the whole system, our hospital system, our skilled nursing facility system, all our systems have spent a huge amount. And ultimately our goal is we want to employ permanent staff. They live in the community. They know their neighbors.
And they know a lot of the patients.
And they know a lot of the patients.
And their families.
And their families, yes. So that's our goal, and that's, we're going to be really working on making some bold moves in conjunction with our Board and Finance Committee's approval to really try to get permanent staff and have them on our rolls versus paying traveling clinicians.
Of course.
And not that the traveling clinicians are bad people,
right,
but it just doesn't work. It's not the model,
of course,
that we
Amen.
Want to.
Absolutely true.
we want to work with.
So how does this work for town funding? Is this based per capita?
Yeah. So over the years, we've had a per capita rate, and ultimately we look at the most recent census for population throughout our 23 communities. And then ultimately it's kind of a math equation from there. So ultimately the population over the total population that we serve is pretty equivalent to the total dollars that we ask for over the total dollars that we receive from all the 23 towns. So those percentages pretty much line up.
And frankly, there are towns that really have, just maybe it's coincidence, just have a lot of
Right.
patients.
Yes. And in any of our service areas throughout the state, there are core areas of our service area that have the majority of the patients. So in our service area, it's very much, Barry, Barrytown, Montpelier, Berlin, Waterbury. Those are kind of our core areas. And then the rest are, and actually certainly out in the valley areas, Waitsfield, Warren, Fayston, all in those areas. And then the rest of the communities certainly have populations, it seems more and more, that need our service.
So someone is, maybe it's you, is sitting with a very sharp pencil and working this equation,
Right.
this formula.
Yeah, and one of the things we want to do is we understand that municipalities have their restraints too, right? These are individuals, these are our property taxpayers, right? So we have to be really sensitive as to what we ask for and making sure that those numbers line up with really the service that we're providing. So we want to also respect the constraints that our municipalities have as well. So,
What does the VNA say about all of this?
So our VNAs of
they're
Vermont,
basically a trade association.
yes, our
right?
VNAs of Vermont is a trade association. We have a really strong executive director, Jill Mazzo-Alson.
Yeah.
She comes with a lot of respect from our legislators here in the state and a lot of respect in the healthcare community, let alone outside of that. She lives in Middlesex, so she lives in our service area.
Sure.
We're grateful to have her. She actually helped us get signatures in the town of Middlesex.
Wonderful.
To be put on the ballot and for town funding. And ultimately, what's really hard is because so many of our dollars come from the federal government. There's only 3 individuals that represent us in Washington, although we are members of a national association. Mm-hmm. Home health probably doesn't get a lot of the attention it needs and certainly deserves at the federal level. Certainly our delegation supports us in any way they can.
Yeah.
There are certain states in New England that have strong voices in the committees. We need them to have strong voices in. Senator Sanders actually is on a committee now that is related to health care, and I'm actually speaking with one of the representatives from his office on Friday to really talk about what are our challenges.
They've got your back.
They have our back as much
seems
as
like
they
it's,
can.
It's a lot more than just policy making.
Yes.
They're advocating for you. And,
Yes, they are.
And vice versa too.
And really, from a state perspective, excuse me, Jill is doing an incredible job in really putting us in front of the system and really having our legislators really think more broadly about what the system consists of. Yes, we have our hospitals. We need our hospitals. Our local hospital is part of a network. It's grown. It's really trying to bring really great opportunities for service to our local communities versus having to travel to so many different places to get high-level care. And so Jill not only, supports those systems such as the hospital and our skilled nursing facilities and all of our assisted living facilities and all these places that our growing older adults live. And she also really is trying to put forth the role of our organization. And if we were to go away, what does that really look like?
Sure.
Because it wouldn't be good.
No, this is healthcare reform
Right.
in its purest form.
Yeah, and I think not a lot of people truly understand all the work we really do. Mm-hmm. So we are fortunate to have a really strong community here in Washington County and a community of providers that really uses their resources and really relies on each other to take care of people.
Yeah,
and get them what they need.
Look at our population in Vermont, our aging population. We talk about it all the time. There's housing issues. There's older and older Vermonters
Correct.
who don't have the luxury to say, you know what, to heck with these winters, I'm out of here.
Right.
We've got older homes, we've got older Vermonters,
Right.
and we have staffing issues in our assisted living facilities and our skilled nursing facilities.
We absolutely do.
We hear the governor talk about it. I mean, we're trying to avoid as much as possible moving our our aging population into these facilities and keep them where they are comfortable, where they are familiar, which is at home.
Right, exactly.
Logistically, that can get really complicated.
That can get really complicated, too, because when you think of it, too, our population in Vermont is aging. And when you look at graphs, like for the aging population and the amount of workforce needed, it is just skyrocketing.
It's nothing but a bag of stress.
Right.
Because every Vermonter has their own unique story,
right,
which is completely different from maybe their neighbor.
Right.
The family that trickles off of that one aging Vermonter is preoccupied with trying to figure out how to care for mom or dad, and there's doctor's appointments. There's so many different facets to this, and it is the tentacles are just they go forever.
And it's been really hard. The workforce has been a challenge for all industries for quite a while. Certainly for the healthcare industry through the pandemic, and now even worse. And we aren't able to do everything we used to be able to do. We really have to look at it very critically. And that's why we rely on fundraising and contributions and town funding and utilizing our investment income to support all these things and really trying to figure out, okay, where can this individual be served the best?
Sure.
And right now, sometimes individuals are in the hospital and really maybe home isn't the best setting for their short-term immediate healing, but they're coming home, and that's really hard on the staff because a lot of especially our medical care is intermittent skilled medical care. We're not there. We're not able to be there 24/7. We're not able to necessarily be there every day of the week. That model hasn't really existed for a very long time.
Right.
But ultimately, the care that some of these individuals needs is at that level.
And it goes beyond
there's
just
not the workforce.
It goes beyond
support
just
that.
It's not just about one nurse showing up for 4 or 5 or 6 hours a day. There's social work that's needed. I mean, there's so many different avenues.
There really is. And, in circling back to Jill, she is just pounding the pavement, really trying to help others understand what this looks like, even though we're only 2% of the healthcare budget, and what it means as we are unable to do all the things we used to be able to do.
So March is fast approaching.
March is fast approaching.
How will you solicit towns for help?
Right. So we start the process actually in the fall prior to town meeting day because most towns are thinking about it at that point, most towns and cities. And we submit information per their requests. Some have certain applications, some just want us to submit service numbers and how many individuals, potentially what our request is. We also have to think about if we're going to increase our request and whether there's a petition requirement or not.
Yeah.
And then starting at that point in the fall is when we are asked lots of times to go in front of councils or select boards to really talk about our work, just go through what the support is for our request. That's actually a great opportunity. I love doing that. Lots of times my whole process is to I really try to look at who's on that council, who's on that select board, what are their interests, what do they support, what is, some of our towns and cities have a strategic plan, and what are the things that they really look to support, and what are they trying to do, and really try to explain to them how our work fits into their priorities. And it's just a really great opportunity to, be able to answer questions and really educate individuals on everything that we really do.
So this has been a 10-year slide of Medicare.
It's been over 10 years. Yep, it started in 2008.
And this is we're talking about how much money here?
Lots of money. Like I said, this year and next year will be $500,000, over $500,000.
That's unbelievable.
So it's been millions, and we've had to adjust. We've had to change how we operate. Everybody does. If you're going to be successful, that's just what you have to do. And these past years, it seems like the shift has been a lot more quickly. So it's really trying to help the staff understand, we're going down one path today, but we have to quickly shift and turn right and go down another path tomorrow. And that's really hard for the staff because their work hasn't really changed. So how does this all impact what they're doing and how they're doing it?
Of course, absolutely. And meanwhile, you're paying state Medicaid tax.
Right. So that's the Medicaid tax is actually referred to as the provider tax, and other healthcare providers pay the provider tax, such as the hospitals and skilled nursing facilities. And ultimately, our provider tax, we kind of signed on to that in the year 2000. I started at CVHHH as an employee in 2002. And what it all was on the basis of is providers pay a provider tax, and then the state is able to use that money to get additional federal match dollars.
Right.
So they can almost like double their money, so to speak. And then some of that money is supposed to come back to us in rate increases. Well, that probably lasted 4 to 6 years for us. And then it kind of stopped. And so now I know the legislator in the past several years has really looked at our Medicaid rates and tried to put increases in. We are thankful for that and grateful, certainly at Central Vermont Home Health and Hospice. But for us, because we're primarily Medicare, that's like a quarter in my $14 million budget.
Sure.
So that's really hard for us. And more recently, we've been working through the budget adjustment process, and they've really put forth some more significant increases for us, which is, once again, we are extremely grateful. They are dealing with many, many organizations that want money, and they're really trying to support us. But because we're primarily Medicare funded, it's really hard for them to do anything. So the one thing that Governor Scott put into his budget more recently was to have the home health provider tax sunset. And what that means is he built his budget with that going away.
Yeah.
So ultimately, our tax at Central Vermont Home Health and Hospice is anywhere between $500,000 and $550,000 a year.
A
year. So if that goes away, $500,000. So if that goes away, that's awesome. It primarily offsets what we're going to lose in Medicare. So instead of being negative, we're at zero, at least from that perspective. But that doesn't mean we're at zero for everything else. Medicaid pays us about 50 cents on a dollar. We have limited private insurance. And the other thing is we have a lot more Medicare Advantage now. And those plans are really great for individuals that are healthy. They really offer some really great services and supports for individuals to actually remain independent and remain at home and support their health as they age. We have one particular payer, Medicare Advantage payer, that pays differently than what traditional Medicare pays us. And on that one payer, we served 200 clients in 2022, and we lost over $500,000 because of the rates they pay us, which are grossly inadequate. They are lower than Medicaid rates. And they are making a big move in the state of Vermont. So that's really challenging. And what we're finding is that some of our clients have no idea, like it all sounds nice on the face of it, but they're having all these coinsurance amounts and all this money they have to pay that didn't really sound that way when they signed up. So there's lots of things that are happening to individuals, and if we were to go out of network with these plans, that only means potentially more coinsurance for the client. And then because of our mandate to provide service regardless of ability to pay, if they can't afford to pay, then they don't have to pay. So we're still in the same place. That doesn't help us. And we know it's impacting the whole healthcare system.
What are Vermont legislators saying about this? You just had your breakfast over there a couple of months ago. So that's
Medicare Advantage plans. That's also hard because it's really mandated at the federal level. We've done some work with different state office is trying to figure out how do we get underneath some of this. And certainly we are working to try to renegotiate those rates. These are humongous companies. We are like, not even a crumb in their pool.
Sure.
We are definitely not really on their radar, and they'll pay us what they pay us, and that's really how they're going to do it.
Yeah.
So, granted, there are other providers for individuals to choose, but, we are embedded in the community, and we live here.
Yeah, we live here, and we want to have more and more staff that is here in our community.
Absolutely. We do.
We have to.
Yes.
We just simply have to do this.
We do.
So we're literally a few weeks away from
Yes.
towns who are able to support Central Vermont Home Health
Absolutely.
and
Some
Hospice.
of our requests are already built into the town budget. So it's a matter of the towns passing the budget. Others, we are a separate line item on the ballot.
Okay.
So fortunately, we've really had a large support of our service area in these times. We want to just respect once again that it is getting harder and harder. But ultimately, our goal is to continue to do what we can with what we have until we have to do something differently. And that means really looking internally and kind of turning over every rock like every other business has to do, and really trying to figure out what we can do, how we can do it, how many people do we need to do it, and what are the things that we really, don't have to do, or things that we can eliminate, from an administrative perspective, kind of everything we are warehousing, so to speak. And we've done it before. It's just a lot harder.
Vermont is in the top 5 of the oldest states in the country. That's huge.
That is huge. That is very huge. And it's this latest Medicare cut is having a huge impact. We're fortunate in the state of Vermont that we have the support of our communities, that we are embedded in a town budget, or we are on the ballot for voters to decide. And a lot of other states, they don't have this.
Yeah.
And, I talk to leaders in other states, and it is really hard, and the care provided is very different.
We're lucky to have it, but we can't take it for granted. We've got to work hard
Correct. Yes.
to keep the edge sharp and keep this alive.
Right. So, and also for most of the town meetings and talking about that process, we have volunteers, whether it be board members or volunteers of the organization, members that live in the communities, representing our organization at the town meeting, if that's going to be in person. I myself potentially go out to some of those meetings just to be there in case there are questions with regards to what we do and how we do it, or how do we use the money, etc. So being part of that process is actually really great. I have gone to towns and just seeing how they do things and what they talk about and what's important to them, and really seeing that democratic process is pretty amazing. And that doesn't happen in other places.
That's right. What about the Central Vermont Council on Aging right down the road here?
We work with them pretty closely. Certainly, they are grappling with this whole Medicare Advantage. They work with individuals to sign them up and get them enrolled in Medicare and really try to educate them appropriately. And they are finding that it's really hard for individuals to understand. And sometimes they're already signed up for something that they don't really know how it's going to impact them.
Not just the patient, but their younger family members.
Exactly.
It is extremely complicated.
Yeah. So, and they do a lot of work. I think everyone's struggling with staffing, and, I'm sure their phones ring off the hook for people that need their support. And everybody just has to really prioritize what's most important. But they are a strong supporter of ours.
Yeah, just figuring out, are we just, is it a steady decline for mom or dad, or was there a fall? Was there an accident? Are they coming out of the hospital, or are they going into the hospital? If they're coming out, are we shifting gears here to the long-term choices for care, deciding which avenue we think we should
Right.
go down.
And
we may
really-
not be on that road for very long.
Yeah, and our Choices for Care program is probably one of the first programs that we've really struggled with workforce over the years, longer than our skilled care side, which has our licensed professionals. And that is really a population, these individuals are that provide the service are paid at the lower end of the wage scale. We did increase our minimum wage a couple years ago. We certainly are looking at increasing it again, but ultimately with funding challenges, it's really hard.
Sure.
So lots
These
of
are
times,
the PCAs and
correct, the personal care attendants, and they do a tremendous amount of work for these individuals. More recently, we had 2 long-term clients that had a dedicated personal care attendant, and were mentioned in their obituaries in the paper by the family, and they're part of their families.
they are part of the family.
Our other staff are as well, but these
Sure.
are individuals that are in the home for 2, 4, 6 hours, sometimes longer.
Cooking, cleaning, laundry.
Correct. Yeah, being their
the nines.
companion, helping them with personal care, all sorts of stuff. And they're really part of that family. And we have some pretty amazing people that do that work. And it's hard, though, because there's, lots of times these individuals have multiple jobs. And then, as wages increase for different employers outside of healthcare, it could be a lot easier to go there and do different work that might be a lot less tasking than the work that they're doing here. So that's always been a real tough program to staff for quite a while now. And that probably took the first hit with workforce. And so having options for those individuals just in that long-term care sector for non-medical care is really, we've been struggling in that area across the system for a very long time.
I'm sure. What about this palliative care program?
Palliative care.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Is that end of life?
To a degree, it's individuals that have a life-limiting illness, and sometimes it's more or less they've been diagnosed with something, they go through treatment, they get into remission after and discharge successfully out of the program. Sometimes it's more of we're seeking treatment, we're trying to determine the best way to control the digression of the disease process, and they may then transfer over to hospice. So palliative care in the home health world is a little bit different than necessarily in the sense of the structure of payment and how we're paid and what we can do for individuals in that program based on eligibility. So primarily for us, palliative care falls under the home health benefit, and that benefit really looks to, promote independence, to really get individuals through their hard time and improve and discharge them back into the community.
It's the end
hopefully.
goal. Yeah.
Right. Whereas, and really talk about, goals of care and potentially advanced care planning. Palliative care outside of that, what we are currently developing is a palliative care consultation service, where that's a place where we have a nurse practitioner that we recently hired that will be working not only with our hospice patients and supporting the hospice staff, working with our hospice medical director, and really supporting those individuals that are going through the end-of-life journey with pain and symptom management, really making sure the family has the support they need and the staff have the support they need to be able to treat these individuals keep them at home.
This is not one person you're taking care of.
Exactly. And then in home health, we have a lot of individuals that I was talking to our home health medical director the other day and just saying, geez, everybody just seems so much sicker and acutely ill, and what is happening, and
Mental
is it
health.
just from COVID or what else is underneath this? And he really said something that was a bit enlightening to me that I hadn't really connected, but I know, and I think all of us know. But he said, I've been doing this for 45 years.
Yeah.
I've been taking care of sick people.
Yeah.
And he said, I've had those patients that are at end stage congestive heart failure or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD. And in the past, we didn't have all these medical interventions or all these pharmaceuticals to have them live longer. They passed away. Now we have all sorts of stuff to help them continue longer. So people are living longer. But that doesn't mean they're not slowly getting sicker or getting worse with their chronic disease.
That's right.
So ultimately what we're doing is we're taking care of individuals that are living longer, that have, we have the ability, some are able to really be active and remain active and manage their disease process, and some aren't. Mm-hmm. And they just over time, they're just getting sicker and sicker and sicker, and it's harder and harder to really support them in trying to improve and reach goals of improvement to continue to remain as independent as they need to. So we're really shifting our work to really support those individuals and the staff that are caring for those individuals through this palliative care consultation service, really having this nurse practitioner be able to make sure we're really supporting those individuals in managing their pain and symptoms, keeping them out of the hospital, keeping them at home, working with their physician provider very closely from that, more or less that level of care. And then also really talking to them about goals of care, advanced care planning, and all of that. And really letting them know, too, that we want to support you through this palliative care process where seeking treatment sooner, and not necessarily chemotherapy or anything like that, but just in managing their chronic disease so they can improve their quality of life, and then potentially moving on to hospice at a time where you're not just on hospice for 3 days and everybody's in crisis, but for a longer length of stay, because that is really that program has so much support in it that so many individuals could really use as their loved one is getting sicker and sicker and sicker.
Sure.
And so much of it is individuals think, oh, they're on hospice, they're going to die. That's actually not the case. There are scientific studies out there that say that if you enter hospice early, and we recently had a annual appeal letter that went out that talked about this woman's husband, they entered hospice really early, and the quality of life they were able to have was pretty amazing. And they didn't really understand that until they went through it. And, it's proven that individuals can live longer. So
Sandy Rousse is the president and CEO of the Central Vermont Home Health and Hospice. And what you're talking about right now, I can't help but think about telehealth and what it's done. And it exploded in popularity with COVID. But you guys had that in place before COVID.
Yeah. So we, in 2007, our CEO was really gung-ho on wanting to get into the telehealth space.
2007.
So I think that we were the second VNA in the state out of, 10 at the time to start up a program. And we started just with the telemonitoring component, where if you had certain diseases, chronic diseases, you were on the telemonitoring program. You have a tablet in your home. It has a blood pressure cuff, a scale, a pulse oximeter, has options to ask you questions of how you're feeling today. Now, and then it evolved into being able to have the option to do video visits and being able to text your nurse on the other end.
This is
and all of that.
This is keeping you in the comfort of in safety, frankly, of your own home without having to transfer into a vehicle during a snowstorm and driving up to the hospital.
Right. And through COVID, we facilitated, physician visits in the home by we have iPads as well, where we can use a secure link to provide, have a visit with multiple people, with multiple providers on that, and really, having the nurse by that individual in the home and the physician there as well really can help us provide better care. The challenging part with telehealth for us is that there is no Medicare reimbursement. So we really provide that with regards to,
I didn't know that.
Yes. So even through COVID, we were not reimbursed for telehealth. So,
and all of these,
and there is no plan to reimburse us anytime soon. Medicare is now at least asking that we report certain information on annual reporting to Medicare, but they are not reimbursing us for it.
All of these tablets, all of this technology is not coming to you free.
No.
And the time that goes with the consults and the technology and the communication between staff and patient. That's not free either.
That isn't. So
wow.
we've chosen as an organization to support that. We do have donors that support that, and but certainly, probably not even half the cost. So we do take that on. We were really glad to have it during COVID because we could, we were nimble and we could switch and do what we needed to do very quickly by having it already in place.
We have 23 towns in Washington and Orange County that rely on Central Vermont Home Health and Hospice. The average is, if I have this right, is around $3,000 per patient per year.
Yep.
That's a lot of money. 75,000 home visits.
Right.
2 home care teams covering 23 communities. Nurses, OT staff, PT staff, home health aides, speech therapists, social workers. And I'm just scratching the surface here.
Right.
I'm just scratching the surface.
Yeah, and so when I think about that $3,000 number, I think it's a bit less, for us to provide care in the home. And certainly those may be some preliminary numbers, but certainly when you compare it to the average hospital stay, it certainly is a lot less. So ultimately, we would like to think that when Medicare is looking at the healthcare system, they're really trying to think about how can we provide care in lower cost settings, and they're not quite there yet.
Yeah.
And they haven't been for a long time, and it's really hard to become hopeful at this time that they are going to shift how they think of our work.
Your comments coming in, you're being called true heroes. We could never have provided the level of care we did to my grandparents or parents without Central Vermont Home Health and Hospice. We are forever grateful. How can people watching, listening to this podcast, either now live or broadcast later, how can they support Central Vermont Home Health and Hospice? Is there something that can they get on your Facebook page and share a link or just a reminder that these 23 towns that you all really rely on them?
Right. They could definitely get out on our Facebook page and share posts related to town funding. We'll be putting it out. Certainly.
Maybe fill out an application while you're there.
Yes, exactly. Fill out an application. We'd love to have more volunteers. We have lots of things that have to be done in our office in support of our staff. There's, as much as things are electronic, there's still, scanning certain amount of paperwork in and supporting our community relations and development department for hospice. There's certainly supporting putting packets together to provide to families. There's lots of things. If you're even interested in becoming a hospice volunteer and spending some time with an individual as they proceed through their end-of-life journey, to have companionship, to, pick up things for them, for the family at the store and bring it to them, to potentially pick up equipment that they need, etc.
And if you can't donate money, donate your time.
Absolutely.
Donate your personality.
And we have all sorts of stuff, even to be present at a town meeting and speak on our behalf in support of that. Certainly, we want you to vote. And if it's a line item on the ballot, we want you to vote yes. Certainly, if it's in the budget, we'd like to think that you would be able to vote yes for the budget based on the whole thing. So,
fundraising. I know you did a huge motorcycle poker run not too long ago, a couple of months back. You have a golf tournament in June?
Yes, we usually have a golf tournament in June.
First one coming out of COVID? Second?
This will be actually the third, maybe second or third.
Okay.
I know 2020 we didn't do one. I believe 2021 we did. And it was great because everybody could be outside and actually be with people. So we had a huge turnout for that. And then last year we also did it. So,
And then you have the Shanry Cup,
yes,
right?
we have the Shanry Cup up
What
at
is that?
Sugarbush. So it's a ski race, and it's on Sugarbush Mountain. And what we do, it's actually in conjunction with Shanry Restaurant. I don't know if you've ever been there, but that is just a really unique little place. If you haven't been, you should go. And the night before, we do like a fondue party, like from 4 to 7. And Henri is usually there, buzzing around, talking to people, and he's just a wonderful man. And we do that the night before. We do a raffle where you can purchase raffle tickets, and people are just there to mingle and talk and all of that. Sometimes we even get individuals that are, up at Sugarbush for the skiing. With the weather we've had, I would like to think the slopes have snow. So that's always a little bit of a challenge. And certainly the weather. Sometimes, the winds are too high, the race gets canceled, etc. But we're hoping that it still can happen this year. So, and then on Saturday we do the race.
Will there be a motorcycle poker run again?
We're not sure. Actually, this past year, the first year we had it was a really large turnout. And then the weekend we had it, a lot of individuals were going to Parents Weekend, and there were other things happening right around it. So, we are looking at events. The challenge with events, too, is we used to have a lot more volunteers, and it's been hard. People are just busy. They're doing different things. There's just a lot happening. So we really look every, season to really think, okay, can we pull this off? Is it really going to benefit the community, or can we do something a little bit different that maybe takes a little bit less resources but can still touch the community in different ways?
Well, God bless Iron Order, and I'm sure that they will step up and help you guys again.
Yes,
because they're great with stuff like that.
Yeah, we're
excuse to ride a motorcycle for those guys. Are there any other fundraising efforts coming up that you can think of?
I don't think so. Not right now. No.
And of course, all this fundraising is really scratching the surface, maybe, maybe not even.
It's a great opportunity. I always look at these events as a great opportunity to actually get people out and see people and really come together, and just bringing people together as a community, because we really are. We are part of the infrastructure of this community. And it's an opportunity for us to remind people of that and to answer their questions and support them in coming together.
And aside from all of this, and I know we talked an awful lot about aging in place and elderly folks, but your maternal and child health and wellness team is massive,
right?
And this is such a positive thing,
right?
And this is not death. This is life,
right?
And that can have its own set of challenges too, complications, right?
Exactly. So yes, like you said, we serve prenatal through end of life, and our maternal and child health program is really critical, because ultimately we know a lot about health, and really it starts when you're a child. It even starts before that, before mom has given birth, right?
Sure.
And so we've always kept our feet in that program for that reason, because of how critical it really is to the progression of life as you age. And it's an awesome program. I actually received services in that program myself. Yes. And
this
it's
is
really
very near and dear to you.
Yes, and it was a critical program actually through COVID. We had a lot of individuals, a lot of single moms, a lot of young families, in COVID with this newborn baby. And it's like, oh my gosh, what do I do? And our staff were amazing and really trying to support these individuals and those new moms.
Do you need to be in the hospital? Are you better at home?
Right. Right. So that is a program that really is pretty impressive. And I'm really glad that we were able to keep our roots as to where we started.
Yes.
Knowing that the future impact, we're having an impact on the future impact of these individuals.
And what a great testament that the president and CEO has lived this and has, frankly, relied on it.
Right. Yes, I did. I had a high-risk pregnancy, and I was up at Fletcher Allen at the time for 7 weeks, and all as I wanted to do was come home.
Be home.
And I was finally able to come home. It was right before Christmas, and I was just so glad to be home. But ultimately, I had to live upstairs in my bedroom for another 6 weeks, and I had the maternal and child health team coming in to see me and check on me. That was part of my emergency plan. I had a plan with our local EMT to actually be able to take me to Burlington pretty quickly if I needed to go. And it was a really great experience. And once I had my daughter, they came over and they were there to support me as a new mom. And I couldn't have done it without them. I mean, I had been on bed rest. I was someone that never napped. So that was a huge change in my life. And they were there for me as well as my newborn. And then my daughter had torticollis, where her neck was always kind of leaning to one side. And actually our current chief operating officer, Kim Legue, who's a physical therapist and was on the physical therapy at the time, therapy team at the time, came out to show me some exercises to work with Olivia on.
Wow.
Yeah, so I've definitely experienced the care, and family members have been on hospice, and my husband has had home health services after his knee replacements and his hip replacement.
Gosh.
So we've, really used the services. So
Yes.
I am definitely a believer, no question about it.
How was Eddie able to get through all that? Was he complaining a lot?
Oh,
Did
no.
he need his ginger ale all the time and everything?
I was just so glad when home health came in. I was like, he is all yours. I am out of here.
Yeah, I bet.
No, he was
I
great.
bet.
He did all the right things, and the staff were really motivating for him, and they got him up and running very quickly. And I was really happy to have them.
Wow. Sandy Rousse is the president and CEO of the Central Vermont Home Health and Hospice. The best way to learn more, and we're not even getting into it here. I mean, this is the beginning of what we're talking about, is cvhhh.org.
Correct.
Or find you on Facebook.
Right.
Everything you need to know, and it's a massive umbrella, but everything that you need to know, including how you can donate your time, how you can volunteer, how you can help fundraise, get involved, be a staff member, is all there. It's
Right.
all there.
It is all there.
Thank you ever so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me. This was great.
We appreciate you. Come back anytime. Let us
Right.
know what you have going on in the community, and we'll promote
Great.
it.
Thanks so much to our community as well.
Thank you, Sandy.